Hello and thanks for joining me again for some more landscape photography. It's a beautiful summer's evening and I'm at the summit of Cefn in Snowdonia. Now, Cefn is one of the northernmost hills in Snowdonia, pretty much a short hop from the island, which is why it's perfect for a quick evening's trip out for me. I had thought about camping here tonight, but it's going to be pretty poor weather in the morning. And since my camping is always designed around getting up early on the spot, there'd be no point. What's the point in camping when I'm 20 minutes away from my own bed? Cefn is not very high, it's only about 440 metres, which is just a little shy of 1,500 feet. And it's quite a soft, rounded hill. There's no rugged aspects to it particularly. But what it does do is it gives me some really good views down the Llyn Peninsula, across over the Carneddau, and behind me you can see Snowdon Summit. Got a bit of cloud on it at the moment. The sun's going down in completely the opposite direction behind where you are, over the island. And so I'm hopeful that in about an hour, hour and a half, there might be some interesting light. If there isn't, doesn't matter, very pleasant evening out anyway. That'll do. In case you're wondering what I was up to, I thought I'd lost the light because there's a big bank of cloud coming in over the Irish Sea. And if the light goes, then this foreground of lovely lilac-coloured heather is going to look pretty drab. And I thought it was all over. I was just getting ready to talk to you, and suddenly it broke just ever so slightly. I didn't have time to put the remote control on the camera, and I've got the sun immediately over my shoulder, which means my shadow was running right through the image. So it was a case of fire the shot off, give it 2 seconds and get out the way a bit sharpish. I did get an earlier shot of Agarn and Glydavawr, which are what I'm leading you up to with this composition. And they had some light on them at the time, so I'll probably combine this most recent foreground image where I ducked out the way with the one I took earlier, because I hadn't changed my composition at all. I'm shooting at 29mm f5.6, and with that in mind, I probably don't need a focus stack, but in this instance I'm in effect exposure blending, because I've now got enough exposures with sun in all of the composition that I've been looking for. The mountains are a little bit off in the background. This is very much in composition terms about leading your eye past these nice boulders through the heather, which I had hoped would be slightly more in bloom, but there's probably 2 or 3 weeks still to go before it really hits peak bloom. And then right across the valley, and down in the valley is Llanberis. Of course, we're looking right over the top across to the Dinorwig slate galleries, and then up to Agarn and the Glyders. I'm going to have a nose around, see if I can find another image where there's some foreground to be had. I might get another shaft or two of light that I can use. But later on, I think what I'm going to be doing is putting my long lens on and see if I can get in tight on some of these summits, if they still catch some light, because they're a lot higher than I am. That cloud is having less effect on the light reaching across to the summits. So I'm ever optimistic. Now, another reason for picking this particular location on this particular evening is that I'm hoping I'll have a chance of an image that I was going for this time last year, but not quite. Let me explain. In about 2 hours' time, the moon is going to rise immediately behind Snowdon summit, a full moon. This time last year, exactly the same thing happened while there was a lunar eclipse. The problem was I was all geared up for standing in this exact spot with the exact same line of sight. The problem was it was completely clouded over. Who didn't see anything of the moon that night. Now at the moment there's clouds on Snowdon summit, so if it doesn't clear up it's going to ruin my picture. But if it clears up, I'm hoping to get the moon coming up pretty much immediately behind the summit. And with my 300mm lens, it might make quite an interesting image. So I'm going to stick around after sundown, kick my heels for an hour or so, and then we'll see what we'll see. Now I think I found another image. It was not going to be the best image I've ever captured, but what it does do is it nicely reflects the nature of this location. And in a lot of respects, that's what landscape photography is all about. So not every image is going to be an epic, because not every location's an epic. But as a record of a really nice view from a very pleasant summer's evening, I'm quite happy with it as a composition. I've got plenty of depth in it. Right in the foreground, I've got some nice jagged rocks, and they're kind of lying with sort of general lines pointing you into the scene. There's a nice little band of heather again. I love the heather. And then another rock, a little bit of forestry, and then right across between Moelelio and Mynydd Mawr, you can see the ridge of Mynydd Dros y Coed, which is where I was in my last video. For some reason, every trip out at the moment has my camera pointing at the Nantlle Ridge. Sorry about that, but it is an interesting profile. But what it does do is it gives you something to lead you through into the image, and it creates that depth. What I've also done is I've kept quite a lot of sky in. I'm shooting wide, about 13mm. And there's quite a lot of interesting detail in the sky. And by using my circular polarizer, I've been able to dial some contrast in, which I will obviously enhance in post. So with the sky added in with all different components of this image, hopefully it'll be relatively interesting. As I said, not a magnificent image, but a perfectly good representation of where I am and how it feels here this evening. Right, time for a pit stop. Hill walker's friend, coffee bags. I used to have a little pot of instant granules that I would top up in the house and carry about with me in the hills. And then I spent a night just over there with Darren Knight, and he brought out coffee bags. The best thing since sliced bread. Absolutely brilliant. So I'll often brew fresh coffee when I'm out and about, rather than lugging a flask about, which goes cold in no time. Anyway, while that water's heating up, just want to have a chat with you about what's been going on in the mountains over the last few weeks. If you live in the UK, you might have read that Snowdonia has been mobbed with visitors, and some of them haven't been very well behaved, and some of my friends have had a few things to say about it. And by and large, I have to agree with them. I think part of the problem is that after lockdown, with there's still travel restrictions, and a lot of people who otherwise would go abroad are coming to places like Wales for a holiday. And it's perfectly fair that they should want to do that. The problem has been the lack of consideration, not just for the locals, but for other holidaymakers that have come here as well. And some of the parking has been nothing short of atrocious. Very selfish and small-minded people thinking it's okay to leave their cars wherever they want. And also people thinking it's okay to leave rubbish wherever they want. The police have started actually towing vehicles away in the last few days. Quite a number were taken from the Ogwyn Valley over the last weekend. Imagine coming down off the hill, having done a long day's hike, to find your car isn't there anymore. You certainly can't get a signal on your mobile phone, so you won't be phoning a taxi very easily, and you won't be phoning the police to report it's stolen to find out that it hasn't been stolen. So that probably wasn't a very pleasant evening for those people, and rightly so. But I haven't been out in the mountains anything like as much as I would normally be at this time of year, despite the fact I'm now able to, since lockdown's a thing of the past, because I didn't want to add to the problem. It's easy for me to come and visit these mountains at any time, and to come somewhere like this where I've had the place completely to myself. There were one or two other walkers who just passed through and said a quick hello, but I've spent 2 or 3 hours here mucking about with my cameras, having a jolly good time, and I've got it all to myself. So even though the more spectacular locations, I certainly wouldn't have that luxury, I can still get out and about. But you won't see me in the mountains as much as normal for the foreseeable future, probably for the next 4 to 6 weeks until things settle down a little bit. It's going to be busier than it would be in a normal season, and that's completely understandable. But if you are coming here and you're the sort of person that parks inconsiderately, I don't know why I'm talking to you, because you don't watch my channel anyway. But I'm gonna have this cup of coffee, slice of chocolate cake. Actually, no, Mum, don't worry, it's not a slice of chocolate cake. It's one of these low-calorie, high-fibre brownie things. It's the only treat that I allow myself. Plus, I've lugged all my gear up here, so I've burnt a few calories off. Anyway, I'm gonna do that and see if there's any more pictures to be had. Well, the light is fading really fast, but I think there's a shot to be had here looking down the Cefn Peninsula towards Eryri. So what I've got with this is a couple of stones at the bottom of the frame, and then another boulder just sitting in a field of heather, and then it drops off to a series of layers down to Eryri. I always like this view, the way the land, the fingers of land runs out into the sea. I've got some nice banding in the sky as well, which hopefully I can bring out in post. So even though the light has gone super flat, I'm hopeful there's an image in this. Well, I've got a few images that hopefully I'll have something to show you at the end of this video. The light is completely gone now. The sun goes down behind Holyhead Mountain on the far side of Anglesey, and it's completely clouded over. It was forecast. I just had my fingers crossed that it might not cloud over till a bit later on. The problem that means for me is that there's no projected light at all on the mountains, and so I've got nothing to work with. No image, it doesn't matter what I do, is really going to work out. I have got quite a nice shot looking down the Cefn Peninsula over Eryri, with the nice peninsulas that run out into the sea, and again depth in the shot with a bit of foreground. So hopefully I'll have that and one or two others to show you at the end of this video. Well, it gets pretty cold on these summits even at this time of year, so always take some extra layers with you. That's my advice. Anyway, the moon is up. I think I've got the image, I'm not sure, but I do have a few which hopefully you'll enjoy at the end of this video. I'm going to leave it there for this one and head off home. Thank you ever so much for coming along with me. I really hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have, why not subscribe now and join me next time? Cheers.